So many people in Australia believe that we don't need to affect the farmers of Australia, and we don't need to change that dramatically our energy system, so we should move to small modular nuclear reactors, ones that mean many parts of Europe are able to say that they're able to transition to zero emissions because, of course, nuclear has zero climate emissions, unlike coal or unlike gas. But this government has done everything it can to say this is not the option because, as the Queensland Energy Minister told us a couple of weeks ago, they've picked the industry that's going to win here, and nuclear is a threat to that industry. But it is going to be one of the things that Peter Dutton will be taking to the next election. Not a nuclear power plant in every backyard, which will be the scare campaign, but a way of reducing the cost of transition and reducing the impact on regional Australia. And this has been something that largely Australians are starting to warm to. The idea that you can have it both ways. Cheaper, reliable power that doesn't need the type of infrastructure that is currently planned to be built or mandated and disrupt this country, at least between now and 2030, but a whole lot longer. So guess what Chris Bowen's chief argument against nuclear energy was today? He has made up a number about the cost of transition. Now remember, I told you the cost of transition under his plan was between $1 and $1.9 T4 trillion, but today, the introduction of modular reactors, $378 billion. And as you've heard from other programs and other analysis, that number could be out by, say, 18 times what the actual number is. So don't you find it amazing that the guy who says no to nukes is using cost of transition argument when even his scare number is a fraction of the number that we will actually have to pay under the decisions that have already been locked in and signed off by this government. So how did they pull this trick off? How did they convince Australians that we needed a system that would cost multiple times more than small modular nuclear reactors? Well, frankly, they just lied about the cost of transition. They never spoke about the $1 trillion suggestion from the CSIRO. They never spoke about $1.5 or $1.9 trillion. They never spoke about just how many solar panels, just how many wind farms or where they plan to go, just how many acres of farming land will be affected by high-tension transmission lines. Instead, they turned around and tried to spin it a very different way. But when it comes to nuclear, here's Christopher Bowen trying to scare you about a fraction of the cost his policy will cost.
The Liberals are saying we have too many renewables. They say their answer is nuclear. They think the answer is to put the most expensive form of power available into our grid. When we have no nuclear industry, we have no regulations in place, it would cost even more than it's facing in other countries.
But it still is a fraction of the decision that he has already locked us into. For his part, Peter Dutton says, no, nice try, pal.
Why can't it work here? If the United States can do the same, if the United Kingdom and France can do the same, why can't it happen here? Analysts talk about Chris Bowen's plan costing between $1.2 and $1.5 trillion.
And he's even undercutting the numbers that I gave you this evening, which come from green groups, in part, the suggestion about up to $1.9 trillion. So again, how did they pull this off? Well, of course, they just lied. Firstly, they told us that there would be literally hundreds of thousands of jobs that would come with this new green economy.
That outlines 604,000 new jobs to be created, cheaper, cleaner energy, which will drive the creation of new industries and new jobs.
And of course, your power bills, well, they were going to fall dramatically.
Reducing power prices by $275.
By 2025, $275 a year.
$275 a year.
We'll get power prices down by $275 a year.
We are 15 months away from 2025. As I said, the day after the last federal election, get the most recent electricity bill you have from April or May in 2022, stick that to the fridge, and if it's $275 cheaper on election day, then sure, vote Labor. But we both know that's not going to happen. We also know that the 600,000 number was a best-case scenario And even some of the modelling that was in there suggested that the actual number of jobs in the building, let alone the maintaining of these facilities, was at best 38,000. But the reality was they had an answer to the question Bill Shorten couldn't answer. So somehow the answer is to choose the system that's more disruptive and more costly than one other parts of the world are using, that will be far more reliable, far less invasive, and far cheaper than maybe up to $2 trillion.